Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about selectors. Selectors are basically methods that let you compute new things. Selectors are the only reason you can do anything interesting in Ludio using variables that you already have. So selectors are they're methods. Um, they're the way you compute anything. So right now, let's look at this action. So this is an action. It's a create notification action. So it's going to throw an announcement to a particular group of people. And let's look at the payload for this action. We have fields that are preset, which are just hard-coded values. We have variables that are cached. So for example, this announcement is being thrown to this cached value of players, and the sound is being played to this cached value of players. So these are sort of uninteresting to us. Selectors are used most, you use selectors when you want to compute something new. So let's look at what a selector looks like. So we are trying to compute, we're trying to compute this header field. This announcement needs a header, and it's a computed value. It's not something hard-coded. It's actually different based on the situation. So the value of this header is a selector with some params. So this little JSON snippet is going to evaluate this function, this method, this selector, these are all interchangeable, format string, and this method is going to take 3 input arguments, which are in params. So params is a list of all the input arguments that this method takes. First parameter. So every parameter has a name, a type, and a value. Okay. The name is the name of the argument that this method accepts. The type is either preset or computed or cached. So again, remember every variable in Ludio is either preset, cached, or computed. So you're specifying the type, and then you give it the value. Okay. Now, every single selector is documented in these 2 documents. There are low-level selectors, which are selectors you're going to use just all the time. Any basic math you want to do, you want to add 2 numbers, you want to do the logical OR of 2 booleans, you want to concat 2 lists. All these very, very basic methods are documented here. If you look at the documentation for any individual one, it'll tell you the name of the selector, it'll show you how many params it takes, and it'll tell you the name of those 2 params. So you have to call these params arg1 and arg2, otherwise you'll get an error. So it's not it's a method where each input has a specific name associated with it, and you have to respect that name. There's another document with selectors that are not low level. These are more specific. But again, these are very, you're going to be using these all the time. These are how you get player names. These are how you get the teams of particular players. There's a bunch of stuff related to cards. So all of that is there. So if we look at one of these, format string, let's go to the documentation for format string. So we read the documentation, and it says format string takes 1 argument called format, which is a string, and then it takes any number of arguments and turns them into an array of strings. And the way format string works is your string format needs to have these dollar signs, and these dollar signs get replaced by arguments that you pass in afterwards. So this is a way to construct a string and sort of leave a blank space for any things you want to fill in, and then you replace the blank space with each successive argument. So format string takes a format parameter, and this is the value of that format parameter. It's this hard-coded string, which is preset. And then we are going to replace this $1 with the name of a particular player. So you can see here the name of this variable is arg1, it's computed, and its value is the output of yet another selector called getPlayerNameById, which itself takes an argument called id, and this time we're passing it a cached variable name called chosenPlayer. Okay. Similarly, there's a $2 sign here, and that gets replaced with arg2, which is a computed value. There's a new selector called ifElse. ifElse takes 3 parameters, condition, then value, else value. I think fairly self-explanatory what those things are. And, you can read this in your own time, but the input to a selector can be the output of another selector, right? You can chain all these computations together to compute something complex. So that's how selectors work. Selectors are how you do any sort of computation in Ludio, and you're chaining together all these preset and computed and cached values to get some final output, which you are then passing into the field of a particular payload of a particular action. All right. Okay, cool.